you've probably heard it said that life is full of unexpected turns. That at times, fate hands you a story so unbelievable you can hardly believe it's real. I used to think that way myself, until my own life became a living testament to that very idea. I am Eleanor Vance, a woman in the twilight of her life. I live in Havenwood, Georgia, a town so small you can barely find it on a map. And my story, it doesn't begin with love at first sight or a thrilling adventure, but with whispers, prying eyes, and an unbelievable truth that turned my small world completely upside down. So, take a seat, settle in for a moment, and let me tell you my story. Because what you are about to hear is not just the story of an old woman becoming pregnant, but a journey to find the answers to the questions. Is love bound by age? And can miracles truly exist in a world so full of prejudice? If you are listening from anywhere in the world, please leave a comment and subscribe, because some truths need to be spread, even if they might shake your beliefs. There are stories that, no matter how painful, must be told. It was an October afternoon, the sky a crisp, clear blue, when I received news that seemed more unreal than true. Me, at over 60 years old, pregnant. Doctor. Miller looked at me over his thick, bottle-bottom glasses and said in a trembling voice, "Mrs. Vance, you are expecting a baby." My heart nearly leaped out of my chest. My legs turned to jelly. I thought, either this doctor has lost his mind, or the world has gone mad. How is this possible? A woman my age? I thought everything inside me had been dormant for years. And yet, I was indeed pregnant, at over 60, with a man 30 years my junior. And in a town where the walls have ears and the windows have eyes, the scandal erupted like a wildfire. Tongues wagged faster than a hummingbird's wings. "That old woman has lost her mind," said some. "It's a trap to keep a young man," launched others. Some even told me to my face that it was a punishment from God. A punishment? Why? Because I had allowed myself to love again. Caleb, the father of the child, was a handyman for people. He arrived in town with a backpack and a smile that could light up the grayest day. When he knocked on my door to offer to fix my roof, I didn't know he was going to fix much more than that. He was going to fix my heart, which had been broken for too long. My daughters, who lived far away and rarely came to see me, suddenly reappeared to lecture me. Rebecca, the eldest, cried so much you would have thought she was going to flood the living room. Sarah, the younger one, called me irresponsible, accusing me of covering the family in shame, as if love and a new life were reasons to be ashamed. But the hardest part was the looks from people on the street. The women who used to come for coffee at my house stopped coming. At church, the pew where I sat became empty on both sides. It was as if I had caught a contagious disease, you understand. Except it wasn't a disease. It was life growing inside me. In those early days, I would cry in secret in the bathroom so no one would see. I prayed to God to give me strength and understanding. Because in all this chaos, one thing was clear. This child was not a punishment, but a gift. And I was going to love and protect it with all my strength, no matter what the town said. And so, I, Eleanor Vance, became the #1 topic in Havenwood, Georgia. The crazy old woman pregnant at over 60. But what no one knew was that this was only the beginning of a story that would change not only my life, but the lives of many others here. Because God writes straight with crooked lines that we don't always understand, my child. And what had begun in shame would transform into what this town would call the greatest miracle it had ever seen. Havenwood is so small that if you sneeze at one end of Main Street, someone says, "Bless you," at the other. Here, everyone knows the name of the neighbor's dog, and even the brand of pills that Mr. Henderson takes for his blood pressure. I was born here, I grew up here, I married Arthur, may God rest his soul, and I became a widow 15 years ago. He was a good, hard-working man, but very quiet. He died suddenly, a heart attack while fixing the fence at the back of the garden. Since then, I had been living alone in this large house with blue shutters and a wooden gate, with my chickens, my plants, and my memories. My daughters, Rebecca and Sarah, left for Chicago a long time ago. They called from time to time, sent a gift at Christmas or Easter. Rebecca is a dentist, married to an engineer, with 2 children who barely know me. Sarah works in IT, a field I don't understand very well. She says she never wanted children, that the world is too complicated. Both are always in a hurry, too busy to come and see me. I had grown used to the solitude. I had my friends from church, the Wednesday quilting circle at Mrs. Gable's, and my vegetable garden that I tended with care. From time to time, I would go to my old friend Martha's for coffee and to hear the town news, which was rarely new: who got married, who separated, who owed money to Mr. Gable's general store. It was on a humid Monday in late July that my life changed. It had rained hard the night before, and my roof, already quite worn, had started to leak in 3 places. The water dripped into the pots I had placed everywhere, making that drip-drip sound that keeps you from sleeping. I went to the weekly farmer's market to find someone who could fix it all. That's where I saw him for the first time, Caleb. Tall, skin-tanned by the sun, strong worker's arms, and a shy smile that appeared slowly on his face. He carried a ladder on his shoulder and a toolbox in his other hand. A simple sign said he did everything: masonry, plumbing, electricity. He wasn't from here. You could tell right away by his accent. When he said, "Hello, ma'am, do you need a service?" I, who never spoke to strangers, found myself telling him about my roof problems, the leaks, and how hard it had become to find someone reliable at a reasonable price. Caleb listened to me attentively. His hazel eyes were fixed on me as if every word mattered. It wasn't a look of pity, like many people give old widows. It was a look of respect. He was 34 years old, from Asheville, North Carolina, and had lost his job in construction. He traveled through towns, taking small jobs to get by. "Don't worry, ma'am. I'll get this roof back in shape. Quality work, guaranteed." And I don't know why, but I believed him on the spot. We agreed that he would come the next morning. I offered to pay him in advance, at least half. But he refused. "Only after you're satisfied with the work." That night, I hardly slept. The house already felt less empty, just at the thought of him coming. I prepared the back room in case he needed to stay a few days. I baked a soft cornbread, the kind that melts in your mouth. And I set aside the best coffee I had. Caleb arrived at 7 sharp. The smell of freshly brewed coffee filled the kitchen when he knocked at the gate. Through the window, I saw him set up his ladder, arranging his tools with care. He had large, calloused hands, but he used them with surprising delicacy, like a craftsman who respects his work. I prepared a simple but thoughtful breakfast: homemade biscuits, cornbread, a bit of pimento cheese that Martha had brought me, and some blueberry jam I had made myself. I invited him to eat before he started. He was embarrassed, saying it wasn't necessary, then finally accepted. He ate everything with a good appetite, complimenting each item. "Mrs. Vance, this is the best coffee I've had in months." While he worked on the roof, I went about my business in the house, but I always found an excuse to go through the garden and take a peek. And every time I went out, he was there, focused, sweating, but always with a smile when he saw me. At the end of the day, when he came down the ladder, his face smudged with cement and his hair a mess, I already knew a change had occurred in me. "There's more damage than expected, Mrs. Vance. I'll have to stay 2 more days." I offered him the back room so he wouldn't have to look for a place to sleep. He accepted, grateful. And that's how it all began. A man who came to fix my roof, without knowing he was also fixing a heart that I thought had been silent for a long time. Caleb finished the work on the 3rd day, but he made an excuse that he needed to check the back beams, then that it would be better to take a look at the gutters. I knew he was making up excuses to stay, and deep down, I wanted him to. The house became more alive when he was there. It was good to hear other footsteps than my own, to have someone to talk to during meals. We started with small talk, you see. Me complimenting him on the coffee he made in the morning, strong as a cannonball. Him saying that a woman who gardened so well had hands made for feeling things. We told each other stories, as if we had known each other forever. He told me about his difficult childhood, his father who left too soon, how he had learned to work on construction sites as a child. He confided his dreams in me, to one day have his own house, start a family, things he had never been able to do, always on the road. I told him about Arthur, about my life as a widow, about my daughters who had left. I showed him the old photos in the leather album, my quilts done on sleepless nights, the vegetable garden I was proud of. And while I spoke, Caleb looked me straight in the eye, truly attentive. It wasn't that look people have when they're just waiting for their turn to talk about themselves. It was a present, sincere look that listened to every word. A week after he arrived, we were sitting on the porch, drinking sweet tea, when he took my hand. A simple gesture, but it made my heart beat as if I were 15 again. His hand was warm, rough, but it held mine with a tenderness that made me cry without warning. "Mrs. Vance, you are the most special woman I have ever met," he whispered. It was the beginning. A beginning I didn't expect, that I hadn't sought, but that felt as natural as the sunrise. Quickly, he settled in for good in the small back room, but spent more and more time with me in the main house. We watched television together, we tended the garden, we went to the market. He taught me how to make grits the southern way, nice and cheesy. I taught him how to make pumpkin and pecan jam. But what we hadn't realized was that the town's eyes were fixed on us. It was enough for people to see Caleb leaving my gate twice a week for the tongues of Havenwood to start hissing like vipers. At first, it was whispers when we passed by, then it became loud gossip. "Eleanor's trying to trap that young man with her old tricks," said Teresa at the butcher counter, laughing loudly so everyone could hear. "It's a disgrace, a woman her age with a young man like that." And when I entered the shop, everyone fell silent, as if I hadn't heard anything. At the corner general store, Teresa, with whom I had gone to elementary school, grabbed me by the arm and told me she was worried about me. "Eleanor, that boy just wants your money. Open your eyes, old girl." I replied that I had nothing, just my small pension and the house that Arthur had left me. She shook her head as if I were a stubborn child. At church, where I had gone every Sunday for over 40 years, the pew I occupied found itself empty on either side. The ladies from the prayer group stopped inviting me. And the worst was when Reverend Michael, during the Sunday sermon, spoke of behavior inappropriate for one's age. And he looked me straight in the eye. It didn't take long for the news to reach Chicago. My 2 daughters, who even forget my birthday, showed up one Friday afternoon with the faces of people who had come to solve a big problem. Rebecca entered in a fury, asking loudly, "Where is the scammer?" Sarah, calmer but with her eyes full of reproach, sat with me in the kitchen. "Mom, what are you doing? The whole town is talking about you. It's a disgrace for the whole family." Rebecca was pacing, rummaging through my things as if looking for evidence of a crime. "This man is going to take everything from you, can't you see?" Sarah cried as if I were dying. "Mom, we're worried. You're at your age, and he's far too young. It doesn't make sense." I let them empty their bags. And then, calmly, I told them, "You've been gone for years, you left me alone here, and now you want to decide how I should live? You only care about me when there's something to criticize. But when I find someone who makes me happy, you show up to lecture me." They had nothing to say back. Rebecca tried to insist, saying she was going to consult a lawyer, that I was no longer in a state to make decisions. Sarah cried even more. When Caleb came home from work and walked in on this scene, he almost turned around. But I called him. "This is Caleb." And I said, "He lives here because I want him to, because he respects me and treats me well, which very few people do." They spent the whole weekend trying to convince me to chase him away. But they didn't see what I saw. They didn't see how he got up early to make me coffee. How he sat with me on the porch, holding my hand. How he laughed at my old stories as if they were the funniest in the world. How he looked at me with admiration, never with pity. How he did the dishes without me asking. How he listened to me, really listened, when I talked about my fears, my joys, my longings. On Monday, when they left, promising to return with a lawyer, I sat with Caleb on the porch. I asked him if he wanted to leave, to avoid more trouble. He looked at me and said, "Mrs. Vance, I will only leave if you ask me to. What we have is worth more than all the gossip." And there, on that porch, under the curious gaze of Mrs. Gable, the neighbor who pretended to hang laundry to spy on us, Caleb kissed me for the first time. A soft, tender kiss that made me feel like the whole world was disappearing. A kiss that reminded me that I was still alive, very much alive, and that I still had the right to feel, to love, and to be loved. What no one in Havenwood understood was that, between four walls, Caleb and I were just two human beings who had found each other when they no longer expected to. Two souls who had recognized each other, despite the age difference, despite the stares, despite the sermons. And that, my child, no one has the right to judge. About 3 months after Caleb moved in with me, I started to feel different. At first, I thought it was just fatigue. I was doing more things, preparing nice meals every day, and I had taken up my gardening with more energy. Normal to be tired, right? I'm not a young girl anymore, after all. But then came the nausea, which wouldn't go away. As soon as I set foot on the floor in the morning, I had to run to the toilet. The smell of coffee, which I had always loved, made my stomach turn. Even the scent of the roses Caleb had planted in the garden made me sick. It must be some kind of virus, I said to Caleb, who looked at me worriedly as I turned pale as a ghost whenever I tried to eat. He made me herbal teas, bought ginger to chew, but nothing worked. It was Martha, my lifelong friend, who whispered the thing I didn't even dare to think. "Eleanor, have you thought you might be pregnant?" She said this while we were peeling potatoes in my kitchen. I laughed so hard I almost fell off my chair. "Martha, I'm over 60 years old. It's been more than 10 years since I've had my period." "So what? My cousin Jean had a baby at 54. The doctor said it was because she thought it was no longer possible and she stopped being careful." Martha continued peeling as if she were talking about the rain, but that idea started to spin in my head. It was true. Caleb and I weren't being careful. Why protect ourselves? At my age, I thought it was no longer an issue. Even Arthur, God rest his soul, hadn't gotten me pregnant in the last years of our marriage. But the symptoms were getting worse. This heat in my body that wasn't normal, even with the summer ending in Havenwood. This heavy fatigue in my legs, as if I had walked for miles. And this pain in my chest, this sensitivity even under the warm water of the shower. I found myself thinking back to my pregnancies with Rebecca and Sarah more than 30 years ago. A week later, I couldn't take it anymore. I had to know. I took the bus to the St. Francis Community Clinic at the entrance of the town. I preferred to go there rather than the small neighborhood clinic where everyone knows me. I didn't want to fuel the gossip anymore. Nurse Peterson, the head nurse, had worked there for about 20 years. I knew her from Sunday service, but not much more. When I entered her small office, she adjusted her glasses on the tip of her nose and smiled at me. "Mrs. Vance, what brings you in today?" I swallowed hard and asked for a pregnancy test. She looked at me over her glasses and gave a little laugh. "A blood test for a checkup? Why, Eleanor?" "I'm feeling strange things, dizziness, nausea." I tried to explain, my face burning with shame. "At your age, it must be the beginning of labyrinthitis or hypertension. We'll take your blood pressure first," she said, as if she were talking to a stubborn child. "Rita, please, I just want to take this test. It's my right." I spoke firmly, looking her straight in the eye. She sighed, looked at me as if she were about to deal with a madwoman, then filled out the form. "You'll have to go to the lab downtown. The results will only be back in 3 days." Those 3 days felt like 3 years. I didn't say anything to Caleb or to Martha. I didn't want to create turmoil, nor raise hopes, nor worry anyone. When the day came, I returned to the clinic, my legs like cotton. Nurse Peterson saw me in the waiting room and immediately brought me into her office. I immediately felt she was different. Her little mocking smile had disappeared. She looked at me with wide eyes, as if she were seeing a ghost, and whispered, "Eleanor, you are pregnant." My heart leaped. I thought it was going to burst out of my chest. "Are you sure, Rita? It's not a lab error?" "The result is conclusive." She showed me the sheet full of numbers I didn't understand, but where positive was written in huge letters. I left there in a state of shock. The sun seemed stronger than ever, blinding. I sat on a bench in the square and cried. I didn't know if it was out of joy, fear, or pure shock. I, Eleanor Vance, was going to be a mother again at over 60. The following week, Rita sent me for an ultrasound at a private clinic run by Dr. Reed. I paid with the savings I kept under the mattress so I wouldn't have to wait for public health system delays. I wanted absolute certainty. Dr. Evans, a man with white hair and a soft voice, covered my belly with that cold gel and began to slide the device. I was shaking so much that he asked me several times to breathe deeply. "Mrs. Vance," he said, turning the screen towards me, "here is your baby. Based on the size, you are about 10 weeks along." On the screen, a small beating dot, a tiny heart, a life growing inside me. I had 2 more blood tests done at other labs. All of them confirmed it. No more doubt possible. It was real. That day, when I got home, Caleb was fixing the garden fence. He smiled at me, but he immediately understood that something was wrong. "Eleanor, are you okay? You're all pale." I sat on the small garden bench and invited him to do the same. I opened my bag and took out the envelope. "Caleb, I found out why I've been feeling sick." He took my hand, worried. "Is it serious?" "That depends on your point of view," I replied, handing him the paper. He read that paper for a long time, without saying a word. Then a tear ran down his cheek, followed by another. He knelt before me, right there on the packed earth of the garden, and hugged my waist, resting his head against my belly. "My child," he whispered, his voice trembling. "My child." I had never seen a man cry like that. Without shame, without restraint. He cried, his arms around my still flat belly, as if he could already feel the baby. Then he lifted his face to me, soaked with tears, with a radiant smile. "Aren't you angry? Aren't you scared?" I asked, tears blurring my vision. "Scared, number. This is the most beautiful gift God could give me, a child from you." I cried too. But it wasn't just out of joy, it was also out of fear. Fear of the people, the rumors, the gossip that until then had only whispered and would now scream. Fear of my age, of my tired body, which would have to carry a new life. Fear of the future, of raising a child at this stage of life. But seeing Caleb kneeling, kissing my belly and promising to be the best father in the world, something inside me warmed up. Life, which I thought I had already lived to the fullest, was tracing a new path for me. A path I never thought I would take again. The path of motherhood, at over 60, in a town where everyone knows everyone, and above all, judges. That night, lying in the bed that was once only mine, Caleb placed his hand on my cheek and said, "Eleanor, let the town say what it wants. This child will be born surrounded by love, and that's all that matters." And I tried to believe it, listening to the crickets singing outside, feeling the warmth of his body against mine. I tried to believe that love would be enough to face what was to come. But the next day, the whole town knew. How? I'll never know. Maybe Rita talked, or a neighbor saw the envelope. What matters is that overnight, the rumor became a certainty. The whispers turned into insults. Before, at least, they pretended. Now, nothing. They would cross my path in the street and look away. Some would even cross the street to avoid walking next to me, as if I were contagious. Once, in the line at the small supermarket, Mrs. Marlene, who had gone to the same church as me for 30 years, looked me up and down and said loudly, "Some people really have no dignity anymore. At her age, trying to act like a young girl." I stood there frozen, my shopping in my arms, a lump in my throat. Another day, Mrs. Gable, my neighbor, spat on the ground when she saw me pass. She spat, as if I were dirty. The same Mrs. Gable who had had coffee at my house, who had cried on my shoulder when her husband was sick. The worst was the church. I had always been devout. I never missed a service. I knew everyone by their first name. When I entered, 4 months pregnant, with a belly already quite round, the murmurs began. Heads turned. The stares were heavy, the snickers discreet, but hurtful. The new pastor, Reverend Michael, barely greeted me. And in his homily, he spoke of modern times and the aberrations that society now accepts. He said that some no longer even respect the laws of nature that God had created, that becoming a mother had an age. He didn't mention my name, of course, but everyone knew who he was talking about. I left before communion, my legs shaky, my heart broken. My friends, the ones I thought were real friends, disappeared. The phone no longer rang. No more visits. Only Martha continued to come. And yet, she too had doubts at first. "Eleanor, are you sure you want to go through all this at our age?" But at least she asked the question. She didn't judge. And things only got worse. A mother from the elementary school, where I gave math tutoring twice a week, complained to the principal. A student's mother said she didn't want her son to be in the same class as Mrs. Vance's child, as if my baby, who wasn't even born yet, was going to contaminate the others. Mrs. Margaret, the principal, who had always treated me with kindness, summoned me to her office with an embarrassed look. "Mrs. Vance, maybe it would be better if you took a leave of absence until the situation calms down." And that's how I lost even that little job that did me so much good, helping children understand numbers. My belly grew, as did the town's rejection. The more visible the baby became, the more people distanced themselves. It was as if I, who had always been part of this community, had become a stranger overnight. I remember one afternoon when I went to the pharmacy to get the vitamins prescribed by the doctor. Mr. Thompson, the pharmacist, served me with a grimace as if he were disgusted. "You should be ashamed," he whispered as he handed me the medication. "A woman your age." I went home crying. My eyes so blurry I could barely see the path. When I got to my kitchen, I collapsed onto a chair, sobbing like a child. It was a deep sorrow, that of someone who feels their place has been stolen. It was then that I felt a hand on my back. Caleb had come home early and had heard me crying. He knelt in front of me, took my hands, and gave me time to catch my breath. When I managed to speak, I told him everything. The pharmacy, the school, the church, the insults, the shunning looks. "Do you want to leave here?" he asked, his eyes filled with worry. "We can start over somewhere else where nobody knows us." I thought of my house, the one Arthur and I had built. The garden where my daughters had played, the trees I had planted, a whole life built in this town. "No," I replied. "This is my home, my land. I will not run away because of wicked tongues." And I saw Caleb smile, a proud smile. "Then we stay, and we'll show them that this baby is the greatest blessing God could have given us." From that day on, Caleb started working even harder. 3 job sites a day sometimes, leaving before sunrise and coming home after dark. His hands became even harder, his face burned by the sun, but he never complained. He saved everything. One day, he came home with his arms full of planks and tools. "What are you doing with all that?" "I'm going to make our child's room," he replied, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world. On weekends, he sawed, hammered, built. With his hands, Caleb transformed that empty room, a storage space, into a warm place. He painted the walls light blue, cut a window overlooking the garden. He built a wooden cradle, so well crafted it looked like the work of an artisan. He also fixed up the garden, planted trees, repaired the fence, hung a swing from the old branch of the pecan tree. "This is for when he grows up," he would say, his eyes shining. Every night, before sleeping, Caleb would caress my rounded belly and whisper stories to our baby. "I'll teach you to fish, to play ball, to do DIY. I'll be the best dad in the world, you'll see." Then he would kiss my belly and thank God for this miracle. It was so beautiful to see this strong man be so tender and gentle. For my prenatal checkups, I went to Asheville, because I no longer had the courage to go to the health clinic in Havenwood. Caleb would take the day off to accompany me. He would ask the doctor questions, took notes, held my hand during the exams. It was as if everyone had turned their back on us, except for God and Caleb. When I felt ready to give up, he was there to lift me up. "One day, they will see. When our child is born, they will understand that it's a gift from God," he would say with a certainty that impressed me. And I moved forward, despite the judgments, carried by the love of this man. My pregnancy was not easy, you can imagine. A 60-year-old woman is not supposed to carry a child, said the doctors. But my baby and I defied all predictions. The doctor in Asheville often shook his head, impressed by the results. You have a strong constitution, Mrs. Vance, and so does this little one. In the 7th month, my belly seemed about to burst. My feet were so swollen that I could only wear my old sandals. My back ached, but I was happy. Every kick, every movement of the baby told me, "It's going to be okay, Eleanor, have faith." Caleb hardly let me do anything. Housework, cooking, just sit. Even to hang the laundry, he would find an excuse to do it for me. "You need to rest. Think about the baby," he would repeat. And I let him, because it felt good to be pampered. Martha came almost every day. She would bring soup, a dessert, and stay to chat. She was getting used to the idea of my pregnancy and was even knitting little clothes. "Blue if it's a boy, yellow if it's a girl," she said. She never liked pink. One night, as I was entering my 8th month, I dreamed of Arthur. He was sitting on the porch in his favorite rocking chair. He smiled at me. "Take care of the little one, Eleanor. He's special," he said in the dream. I woke up with a warmed heart, as if I had received a blessing. But the next night, the most difficult trial of my life began. It was a cold July night, the wind hitting the window, and I had asked Caleb to add another blanket. I was sleeping soundly, as only pregnant women can sleep. And suddenly, a pain pierced me, so violent that I couldn't even scream. It was like a knife slashing my belly. I put my hand under the sheets. It was wet. I pulled it out, covered in blood. A lot of blood. "Caleb," I whispered in a barely audible voice. He woke up with a start, as if he had been waiting for this moment. Seeing the blood, he turned pale. "My God, Eleanor, the baby." He got dressed in a hurry, lifted me into his arms as if I weighed nothing. Barefoot, in his pajamas, he ran to the car. He settled me in the back of the old car he had bought on credit. "Hang on, my love, hang on," he repeated, driving like a madman in the darkness, all the way to Asheville. The pains came in waves, stronger and stronger. I could feel the blood flowing, soaking the seat. My vision blurred, as if caught in a cloud. I was cold, very cold, even though the night wasn't that frigid. "Caleb, if something happens to me—" "Don't say that," he cut me off, his eyes panicked in the rearview mirror. "Everything will be fine, you'll both make it." But I knew something was wrong. My body, which had already known 2 pregnancies decades earlier, was sending me alarm signals. The baby was no longer moving, and the blood, so much blood. The journey to Asheville normally took an hour. Caleb did it in 35 minutes. He braked, screeching, in front of the emergency room of St. Clair's Regional Hospital, honking like a madman. The security guards rushed over, thinking a drunk was causing a scene. When they saw the situation, the security guards immediately called the nurses. They laid me on a stretcher and ran me through the white, brightly lit corridors of the hospital. Caleb followed behind, barefoot, his pajamas stained with my blood, shouting for them to save his child. I remember Dr. Reed, the on-call doctor, who looked like he had just graduated from medical school. He examined my belly with devices, asked rapid questions that I couldn't even answer. "Placental abruption," I heard him say to the nurse. "We have to operate immediately." They took me directly to the operating room. The world was spinning around me. The overly bright lights burned my eyes. The blood wouldn't stop. "Her blood pressure is dropping," he said. Before administering the anesthesia, Dr. Evans leaned over me. His young face was grave, worried. He held my hand and spoke softly, but with terrible clarity. "Mrs. Vance, the situation is critical. The placenta has completely detached. You're losing a lot of blood. The baby is in distress. His heart is beating weakly." He paused for a moment, swallowed, and continued. "Given your age and your condition, we have to make a difficult choice. We will likely only be able to save one of you, one or the other. The chances of saving both are extremely low." The world stopped. A decision a mother should never have to make. An impossible decision. I saw Caleb on the other side of the glass, held back by 2 nurses who were preventing him from entering. He was crying like a child, shouting my name. Our child was only 7 months in my womb, so small, so fragile, but already so loved. "Save him, doctor," I said in a voice stronger than I thought. "Save my child. He deserves to live. I have already lived." The doctor tried to insist. "Are you sure, ma'am? And your husband?" "My son," I repeated, crying. "Save my son. That's the only thing that matters." I saw the doctor nod to his team. A nurse prepared a syringe. I felt the needle go into my arm, then the cold of the anesthesia spreading. I was shaking. My last thoughts before sinking into darkness were for Caleb, for our baby, for Arthur too, and that dream I had. "Take care of the little one, Eleanor. He's special," Arthur had said in that dream. "I tried, Arthur," I thought, surrendering to the darkness. "Now he is your son too. Protect him." And I closed my eyes, believing it was the end. That I would never see the sunrise again, nor smell the scent of coffee, nor hear the birds sing in the garden. That I would never see my child's face, nor hold him in my arms. At that moment, I accepted death. I accepted to give my life for his. And I felt an immense peace envelop me, as if thousands of angels were carrying me far from that cold hospital room, far from the pain of the blood and the fear. "My son will live," was my last thought, and I smiled inwardly, certain I had made the only possible choice. And then, nothing. An absolute void, deep, without dreams, without pain. As if I had become mist, dispersed in the air. But God had other plans. Plans that no doctor, no rational mind could have imagined. Because what happened next has only one name. A miracle. I don't know how long I remained in that void. It could have been a minute or 1,000 years. I was no longer aware of time or my body. And then, suddenly, a light. Not an ordinary light, a light so pure, so intense that it seemed to wash over my soul. And in the middle of that light, I saw Arthur. He was there, smiling, rejuvenated, without wrinkles or fatigue. He held out his hand to me, as if to call me. "Arthur." I wanted to say, but no sound came out. It was as if we were speaking without words. "Not yet, Eleanor," he said, smiling. "It's not your time. There are people waiting for you." And I felt a force pulling me back, like a rope tied to my waist. The light faded, Arthur disappeared, and an immense weight filled my chest. Then, suddenly, I opened my eyes. Everything was white. The ceiling, the walls, the light. I thought I was still dreaming. I blinked several times. Then I understood that I was in a hospital room. I turned my head slowly, feeling a sharp pain in my neck. And there, I saw Caleb. He was sitting in a chair, his beard a mess, his eyes ringed with dark circles, his face gaunt. He was holding a small blue bundle in his arms, as if it were made of glass. I tried to speak, but my throat was dry. I just groaned. It was enough. Caleb looked up immediately. "Eleanor," he whispered, as if he feared he was dreaming. "Eleanor, you're awake?" I managed to nod weakly, and his face transformed. He began to cry, as I had never seen a man cry before, tears of immense relief. "He's alive, Eleanor," he said, approaching with that little blue bundle. "Our son is alive." He leaned the child towards me, and for the first time I saw my son's face. So small, so fragile, his skin red, his eyes still closed, a tiny mouth, a handful of black hair stuck to his scalp. He was beautiful. "The doctor says he's incredibly strong," said Caleb. "He cried as soon as he was born, even premature. He has the lungs of a warrior." I tried to speak, and this time a murmur came out. "I'm alive too." Caleb knelt beside the bed, our baby in one arm, holding my hand with the other. "The doctor said it's a miracle, Eleanor. You lost so much blood. Your heart almost stopped twice. They had to remove your uterus, but you're here. You came back." At that moment, Dr. Evans entered. He stopped, stunned. "Mrs. Vance, you shouldn't be conscious. The dose of sedative." "She's stronger than your medicine, doctor," said Caleb, his voice trembling with emotion. "Strong like our son." The doctor examined me, not hiding his astonishment. "I've never seen this in my career. You were in critical condition less than 24 hours ago. Your chances were almost nil." "It was God," I whispered. "I saw a light." The doctor smiled gently, neither confirming nor denying, probably too young, trained in a medicine that doesn't believe in miracles. But I knew. I knew I had been to the other side, and that I had been sent back. "As for your son," he added, "he is just as exceptional for a 32-week premature baby born in such conditions. He is incredibly vigorous. He didn't even need respiratory assistance. That's very rare at this stage." Dr. Evans adjusted my IV and told me he would be back later to do more tests. Before leaving the room, he stopped at the doorway and observed the three of us. Me in the bed, Caleb kneeling beside it, holding our son in his arms. "I'm not a religious man," he said, "but if I have ever seen a miracle with my own eyes, it's what I've seen here in this room these last 24 hours. When he left, Caleb gently placed our baby on my chest. He was so light, so small, but I could feel his strength. His little heart beat fast against mine, like a panicked bird. His skin was warm, soft. I was still too weak to hold him alone, but just feeling him against me was enough to transform everything. "He doesn't have a name yet," said Caleb, sitting on the edge of the bed. "I waited for you to wake up so we could choose it together." I looked at that perfect little face, and I knew without the slightest hesitation. "Nathaniel," I said softly, remembering the light Arthur, the journey I had made between life and death. "His name is Nathaniel." Caleb smiled. "Nathaniel," he repeated as if to test the sound. "It's beautiful. Does it mean something?" "It's a name from the Bible," I explained. "It means gift of God, because he arrived like a remedy in our lives. And also because I didn't dare tell him about the light, about Arthur. I was afraid he would think it was the effect of the anesthesia. But Caleb squeezed my hand. "Because he's an angel who brought you both back to me." At that moment, as if he understood we were talking about him, Nathaniel opened his eyes for the first time. They were not the vague eyes of a newborn. They seemed to see, to understand. They shone with their own light. "Look, Caleb," I whispered, moved. "He's looking at us." Caleb leaned over and kissed our son's forehead. "Welcome, Nathaniel," he said softly. "You gave us quite a scare, you know. But you were worth every second. You are our miracle." And so, there were three of us. An unlikely family. A 60-year-old woman back from the dead. A 34-year-old man who didn't expect to become a father. And a premature baby stronger than his size. I stayed in the hospital for 2 weeks. Every day was a progress. The doctors were amazed. "You're recovering at an incredible speed, Mrs. Vance," said the night nurse. Nathaniel stayed in an incubator as a precaution, but he didn't need any special care. He grew quickly, drank with appetite, cried loudly when he wanted something. "This child is ready for life," smiled the pediatrician. When we were finally discharged, Caleb came to pick us up in his car decorated with balloons. He was clean-shaven, well-dressed, with a huge smile. On the way back to our town, I looked at the sky through the window, thanking in silence. For life, for my son, for Caleb, and for this certainty, God had decided that I still had a role to play. The greatest of all, raising this little boy who slept against me, unaware that he was already the greatest miracle our town had ever known. The return to Havenwood, Georgia, was like entering another story. The town that had rejected me turned to me again. But this time, the looks had changed. Everyone seemed to have heard about the miracle. Me, almost dead. The premature baby saved against all odds. The doctors, unable to explain. We had named our son Nathaniel, the gift of God. And that name couldn't have been more fitting. This baby had not only saved my life, he had changed the lives of so many others. The first week at home, I was still weak. Nathaniel had to be fed every 3 hours. I had no milk because of my age and the surgery. So we gave him the bottle. Caleb got up with me every night, warmed the milk, changed the diapers, helped me rock the baby. He didn't want to hire help. He said he wanted to take care of us himself. I remember our first visitor. It was Martha, my old friend. She arrived with a still warm carrot cake and a bag full of knitted clothes for the baby. She entered timidly, but when she saw Nathaniel sleeping in the cradle made by Caleb, her eyes filled with tears. "He's the most beautiful baby I've ever seen, Eleanor." And it was true. Then came Mrs. Gable, the grocer's wife. She brought diapers and powdered milk. "It's a gift," she said without looking me in the eye. She was one of those who had gossiped the most about me. But now she was here, with gifts and silent apologies. The days passed and the visits multiplied. People brought us dishes, clothes, kind gestures. The curiosity, of course, had not disappeared. They wanted to see with their own eyes the miracle baby born to a 60-year-old woman. But the looks had changed. It was no longer judgment. It was wonder. The most surprising were my daughters, Rebecca and Sarah. The ones who had called me crazy now called me every day to get news of their little brother. Sarah came first, 2 weeks after our return. She arrived alone, with a teddy bear bigger than Nathaniel. When she took the baby in her arms, I saw her face transform. "Mom, forgive me," she said, crying. "I said so many stupid things, but he's perfect." At that moment, I knew I had her back. Rebecca came later, with her husband and her 2 children, my grandchildren whom I barely knew. It was her first visit in 3 years. She was stiff, distant. But when she saw Nathaniel, she stood frozen. He looked at her and made a little noise. The dam broke. She took him in her arms and held him as if she were holding the whole world. "He has your eyes, Mom," she murmured. And it was true. He had Caleb's eyes, but the gaze, the way of seeing things, was mine. He had taken the best of each of us. Nathaniel grew strong and healthy, to the surprise of the doctors. At each visit, they shook their heads. "It's incredible," said Dr. Evans. "Hard to believe he was born prematurely and in those conditions." But the biggest surprise came when he was 5 months old. One Sunday afternoon, there was a knock at the door. It was Reverend Michael. Yes, the very one who had preached against modern aberrations. He was alone, with a package wrapped in blue paper. "Mrs. Vance," he said hesitantly, "I came to meet the little one and bring a gift." I invited him in, even though my heart tightened, remembering how he had treated me. Caleb was in the garden, fixing the chicken coop, and he entered the living room with a stern face upon seeing the pastor. But I signaled him to stay calm. Reverend Michael sat on the edge of the sofa, holding the package on his lap as if it were about to explode. I went to get Nathaniel, who had just woken up from his nap. He was already laughing, recognizing faces, holding out his arms to be picked up. When the pastor saw this child, something happened. He turned as pale as a sheet. He looked at Nathaniel, then me, then Caleb, then Nathaniel again. "May I? May I hold him?" His voice didn't sound like his. I gently placed Nathaniel in his arms. The baby observed him with curiosity, smiled at him, then reached out his little hand to touch his cheek. And there, Reverend Michael did something I would have never thought possible. He cried, like a child, without restraint, in front of us. "Mrs. Vance, Mr. Caleb, I came to ask for forgiveness, for what I said, what I thought. I judged without understanding, and God showed me how wrong I was." He told us that he had visited a fellow pastor in Knoxville, Tennessee, and had heard about the miracle at the St. Clair's Clinic. A 60-year-old woman and a premature baby who should never have survived. When he realized it was me, he said it was as if God had slapped him. "This child is a blessing," he said, looking at Nathaniel with sincere reverence, "and I would be honored to baptize him if you accept." We accepted. Nathaniel's baptism was the most important event that Havenwood had known. The church was packed, with people all the way out onto the lawn. The same people who once turned their eyes away when they saw me now wanted to be a godparent, to touch the baby, to be part of this story. And you know what Reverend Michael said during the ceremony? He said that Nathaniel had come to teach the whole town a great lesson. Never to judge what one does not understand, that God writes straight with crooked lines, and that true love has no age. When he poured the holy water on my son's head, a strange thing happened. The whole church filled with the scent of flowers, but no one knew where it came from. Time passed. Nathaniel grew, strong and bright. He walked early. At 10 months, he was already taking his first steps, his hand clutching Caleb's. He spoke before most children. Papa, Mama, and at 1 year old, he was saying simple sentences. Today, he is 11 years old, and he is the joy of our lives. He runs in the garden as if he has wings on his feet, climbs trees like a little monkey, raises birds in shoeboxes. He has a gift with animals. Even the wildest ones approach him. At school, he is the best in his class, especially in mathematics. But what is most impressive about Nathaniel is his gaze. There is a light in his eyes, as if he carries the sun inside. And the people, those who mocked me, turned their backs on me, whispered nasty things. Today they call me Mrs. Eleanor, with respect. The mothers want Nathaniel to play with their children. They say he is a good influence. The old men on the benches in the square want him to sit next to them, to listen to their stories. They say he listens like no one else. Even Reverend Michael, who has become a close friend, says that Nathaniel has a gift for comforting souls. The other day, Mrs. Gable, yes, the very one who had spat at my feet, came to ask if Nathaniel could come and help her grandson build a doghouse for their dog. He went, of course. And he came back saying, Mrs. Gable's cheese biscuits are the best I've ever eaten. That's how things changed. This child who should have been a shame became a source of pride. Not just for me and Caleb, but for the whole town. The same people who called me crazy now call me Mama Eleanor with tenderness. When I walk with Nathaniel in the street, there is always someone to ask him for a blessing. And I always say, God knows what he is doing. And sometimes he takes the most unexpected paths to send us his greatest blessings. But life is not a fairy tale, even after the miracle. Not everything became perfect. Raising a child after 60 is not easy. There were days when my body couldn't keep up. When Nathaniel started to crawl, my God, it was like he had a motor in his legs. A moment of inattention was enough, and he was already under the table or climbing the shelf. Caleb continued to work hard. He had gotten a permanent position at Horizon Builders, the construction company building the new apartments near the station. He would leave before dawn and come back with his back broken from fatigue. But never, ever did he complain. Even exhausted, he found the strength to play ball with Nathaniel, to read him stories, to help me with daily chores. Caleb is 45 years old today. A few white hairs are appearing at his temples, which gives him a different charm. His hands are still hard and calloused from work, but they are the softest hands I have known. He still looks at me the way he did at the very beginning, when he was fixing my roof, as if I were the most precious thing in the world. Of course, not everything is always rosy. We argue sometimes, like all couples. There are days when he comes home late, and I pout. Days when I grumble about his mess in the garage, his tools everywhere. And he grumbles because I spoil Nathaniel too much, or because I do things the doctor has forbidden. But you know what I've learned? That true love doesn't break over an argument. After the storm, we always find our way back to what really matters. Caleb takes care of me as if I were crystal. Stubborn crystal, as he says himself. Never seen a crystal with so much character. He laughs when I'm being stubborn. Our routine is simple, but filled with small joys. I get up early, before the two of them. I make coffee. I love this quiet time alone in the kitchen, listening to the birds and smelling the fresh coffee. I sometimes make a cornbread or cheese biscuits, if I have time. Then, I wake up Caleb, who always asks for 5 more minutes before getting up, his hair a mess. Nathaniel, he gets up by himself. It's like he has an internal clock. At 7 o'clock sharp, he's already in the kitchen, in his pajamas, his hair a mess, asking for his chocolate milk. He tells me his dreams, talks about his projects, asks 1,000 questions to which I don't always have an answer. Then Caleb leaves for work. Nathaniel goes to school, and I take care of the house. I can't do everything like before. Washing under the furniture is over, but I do the essentials. I take care of the vegetable garden. Now, We even have strawberries that Nathaniel planted. I feed the chickens, collect the eggs, prepare lunch with what we grow. When Nathaniel comes back from school, the house fills with life again. He brings friends over, they play in the garden, invent stories with his figurines, do experiments they see on the internet. He has an endless curiosity. He wants to know how everything works, where it comes from, where it's going. Caleb comes home at the end of the day, takes a good shower, and has dinner with us. This is my favorite moment of the day. The three of us around the table, sharing our stories, laughing at Nathaniel's antics, dreaming of the weekend. Then, Caleb helps him with his homework, especially math, where he is very gifted. Our house remains modest. The blue walls are a bit faded, the garden full of fruit trees. We have chickens, a mutt dog named Smokey that Nathaniel found wandering in the street, and a black cat named Shadow. The smell of cornbread often floats in the air, mixed with the scent of the dahlias I planted in front of the house. On weekends, we have visitors. My daughters come more often now. Rebecca brings her children, who love to play with their younger uncle. Sarah, who never wanted children, is the doting aunt who brings gifts and takes Nathaniel for walks. It's funny how his birth brought the whole family together. My friend Martha still comes for coffee almost every day. She brings cheese biscuits that she knows Nathaniel loves. She is old now, walks with difficulty, but she has lost none of her joy for life, nor her taste for conversation. "It's this kid who keeps me alive," she always says, pointing at Nathaniel. Life is not perfect, of course. There are days when my joints ache, days when fatigue overwhelms me. Sometimes I worry about the future. I am 72 years old, after all. How much time do I have left to see my son grow up? Will I know the grandchildren that Nathaniel will give me one day? Then I look out the window, and I see Caleb teaching him how to fix his bike. I see his large, calloused hands guiding our son's small hands, showing him how to hold the tools. I hear their laughter, so similar, echoing in the garden. And I tell myself that even if I am not there to see everything, my son will be fine. He has the best father I could have dreamed of. Rebecca once asked me if I had any regrets. If having a child at my age wasn't too great a sacrifice. I replied that the real sacrifice is to live without love, without purpose, to wake up in the morning with no reason to get up, to look at the future and see only solitude. That is a real sacrifice. Because Nathaniel, even on the days he exhausts me, even when he tests my patience as only children can, is the greatest joy I have ever known. Every discovery he makes is like my own. Every victory, from his first step to his first A+, fills my heart with immense pride. And Caleb? Caleb is the companion I never thought I would meet again. We love each other as only those who have survived chaos can love, with gratitude, with patience, with the certainty that each day together is a gift not to be wasted. People still look at us in the street, but now it's different. "Look, it's Mrs. Eleanor's family," they say. Family. That little word I thought I would never hear associated with my name again. Not long ago, I was sitting on the porch, watching Nathaniel play with Smokey, when Caleb sat next to me and took my hand. We stayed there, without speaking, watching our son run in the garden, feeling the afternoon sun, listening to the cicadas. "What are you thinking about?" he asked after a moment. "About the way life turns," I replied. "About how I thought I had lived it all, that I just had to wait for time to pass, and then you appeared at the market, with your ladder on your back." He smiled, squeezed my hand. "I thank God every day for that leaky roof. This is what we have. A simple house with chickens in the garden, the smell of cornbread in the air, and the sound of Nathaniel inventing stories with his figurines. We have a love that defied a whole town, a son whom doctors call a miracle, and the certainty that it is never, ever too late to be happy. And that, my child, is true wealth. That is the real miracle. You know, there are days when I sit in my rocking chair on the porch, look at the starry sky of Havenwood, and think about all the mysteries of life. I never would have believed that at over 60, when I thought I had lived it all, God would offer me a new love and a son. This story I've just told is not a novel, nor a fiction. It's my life. A life that changed completely when I thought all that was left was to wait for the days to pass. A life that found its colors again, when everyone said that at my age, I should settle for black and white. There are so many people who give up on happiness because they've been told they're too old, who put their dreams away in a drawer, convinced it's too late. But who said there's an age for happiness? Who decided that after 60, life is just a waiting room? Look at me. At over 60, while other women my age were quilting, waiting for their grandchildren's Sunday visit, I was pregnant. I was discovering a new love. I was fighting against an entire town for my right to happiness. It wasn't easy, you saw that. There were tears, fear, averted gazes, moments when I thought I would die. But today, I wouldn't change a thing. Every tear, every insult, every closed door led me here. A 72-year-old woman who can say with a full heart, I am happy. Not a lukewarm happiness of those who settle for little. Number. A vibrant happiness that wakes me up every day with the desire to see the sun rise, to hear my son call me Mom, to feel Caleb's embrace when he comes home from work. Just yesterday, Nathaniel came home from school, all enthusiastic. The teacher had asked them to write an essay about their hero. Do you know who he chose? Me, his mother. He wrote that I was a heroine because I had given my life for him before I even knew him, because I smile every day, even when the pain is strong, even when my body is tired. He read me his text. And when he finished, he looked at me with his eyes where all the stars of the sky shine, and he said, Mom, I'm the luckiest boy in the world because God chose you for me. I couldn't say anything. I took him in my arms and cried. Because at that moment, I understood the meaning of everything I had been through. I understood why I had come back from the dead in that operating room. I understood why Arthur had come to get me in the light to send me back. We spend our lives thinking we know what's good for us. We make plans, we draw paths, and we despair when nothing goes as planned. But sometimes, just sometimes, life comes with a surprise so big, so strange, that we are left speechless before the wisdom of God. Despite the pain, the fears, the prejudices I faced, today I can look anyone in the eye and say, it was worth it. Every second. Because my son's laughter, Caleb's embrace, the house full on Sundays with my daughters and my grandchildren, that has no price. I saw a whole town change through love. I saw people who had judged me ask for forgiveness with tears in their eyes. I saw the transformation, not only in my life, but in the lives of so many others around me. Reverend Michael, the very one who had condemned me in his sermon, is now the most fervent defender of the idea that love has no age. He even uses our story in his Sunday homilies. God writes straight with crooked lines, he says, and sometimes he takes the most unexpected paths to teach us what true love is. So, if someone ever tells you that you are too old, that you no longer have time to be happy, that your dreams are childish at your age, look at me. Tell my story. Say that you know a woman who, after 60, received a true love and a miracle son. Say that this woman, instead of hiding, lifted her head. Say that this woman, when she had to choose between her life and her child's, hesitated for only a fraction of a second. And also say that this woman, by a mystery that even doctors cannot explain, survived to tell her story. Today, they call me Mama Eleanor with pride. The same people who called me crazy, irresponsible, a shame, now look at me with respect. Not because I changed to please them, but because I followed my heart, even when everyone said I was wrong. My dear friend Martha always says that Nathaniel is the miracle child. And I agree. But the miracle is not only in his birth, strong, after all that happened. The miracle is not only having survived an operation that doctors thought was fatal. The real miracle is the transformation. The miracle is that love triumphed over prejudice. The miracle is life flourishing where only darkness was expected. I have lived long enough to know that life gives no guarantees. I don't know how much time I have left here on earth. I don't know if I will see Nathaniel graduate, get married, have children, but I know that every day I wake up and can see his smile, hear his laugh, feel his hug, is an immense gift. And if you doubt everything I've told, if you think it's a made-up or embellished story, I understand. There are things in this life that are hard to believe, blessings so great they seem like fairy tales. But I invite you, come to my house, have a coffee, sit on my porch, taste my cornbread, talk with Caleb, meet Nathaniel. See with your own eyes how love can transform everything. And then, tell me if my son is an invention or a gift from heaven. Because deep down, what I have learned from all this is that it is never, ever too late to start over. Never too late to love. Never too late to be happy. Life can surprise us at the last second, when we least expect it, in the most unexpected way. And when that happens, when surprise knocks on your door, don't be afraid. Open your arms and welcome it. Even if everyone says you're crazy, even if the whole town laughs at you. Because, who knows, it could be the beginning of your own miracle. My name is Caleb. I'm 45 years old, and today, I'm sitting on a bench in the town square of Havenwood during my lunch break. I brought the lunchbox that Eleanor prepared this morning. Rice, beans, steak with onions, and a grits casserole that only she knows how to make. Before, I used to eat on the construction site, sitting on a bag of cement or on a plank. Today, I prefer to come here, breathe a little, observe the town. It's crazy how everything changes. I'm looking right now at the gazebo in the square, where 10 years ago, people would gather to speak ill of me and Eleanor. I remember passing by there. The conversations would stop, the stares would follow me, the whispers would resume as soon as I turned my back. Today, people greet me, ask for news of Nathaniel, invite me to their children's birthdays. When I arrived here, I had nothing, just a ladder on my back and the hope that my life would change. I came with the clothes on my back and my old toolbox. I slept in a small room behind Mr. Gable's general store, paying for my lodging by fixing what I could. I never would have imagined finding love here. Even less that this love would become a family, that I would put down roots in a town where I was just passing through. Who would have thought that a penniless 34-year-old worker would fall in love with a 60-year-old woman and that we would have a child together? Putting down roots in a town where I was just passing through? Life is unpredictable. I see people looking for love on apps, wanting someone of the same age, the same style. I found mine looking for a roof to fix. When Eleanor told me she was pregnant, I trembled, cried, was scared like never before. It wasn't just me anymore. It was a baby to come, an older woman who needed me like no one ever had before. I had to grow up overnight. From a wandering worker, I became the pillar of a home. I got a permanent contract, saved every penny, worked overtime to the point of exhaustion. I renovated Eleanor's house on weekends. I built Nathaniel's cradle with wood, salvaged from a construction site. There was a time when I was working on 3 sites at once. I would leave at 5 in the morning and come home at 10 at night, so tired that I would fall asleep without even eating dinner. And that night at the hospital, I still can't talk about it without my voice breaking. I thought I was going to lose them both. Eleanor so pale, so weak, connected to all those machines. And Nathaniel, tiny in an incubator, surrounded by wires. I spent the night pacing, praying, pleading, making promises. When they both survived, I understood that I had been given a second chance. Our family was born twice. Once when we discovered the pregnancy, another time when they came home. Nathaniel is 11 years old now. He just passed by here with his friends after school to buy ice cream. He saw me, gave me a hug, and left. He is between child and adolescent. Almost a man already. He's growing like a weed, brilliant at school, won a medal in the math Olympiad, excellent at soccer, a gift for music too. But what makes me proudest is his heart. A respectful, kind boy who helps at home without complaining, who treats his mother like a queen. Every time he calls me, Dad, I feel the meaning of my life. When I leave the construction site exhausted, I think of the home where he is waiting for me with Eleanor, and it gives me the strength to go on. Eleanor is 72 now, still strong, stubborn. She runs the house with a firm hand. She insists on cooking for me every day, even when I tell her it's not necessary. A hard-working man needs real food, she says. Her hair is all white, her wrinkles more pronounced. But that look has remained the same as the one that seduced me from the first day. People here have gotten used to us. At first, it was mostly gossip. Today, they treat us like any other family. Some even cite us as an example of perseverance. And if someone says I'm with Eleanor for her money, I smile. They thought I wanted her money. What money? Her small pension and her modest house. We're still together. I'm still here. I've climbed the ladder, not changed towns. I've built a family, not destroyed one. I've taken care, not abandoned. What we have built is not measured in money, but in courage, in constancy, in resilience. In a few minutes, I have to go back to the site. We are building the new health center at the entrance of the town. I'm the site foreman now. I don't carry bags of cement anymore. I have 5 workers under my responsibility. Some used to mock me. Today they call me Mr. Caleb and ask me for family advice. That's life in a small town. People are quick to judge, but they know how to admit when they were wrong. Prejudice becomes respect. When you prove, day after day, that your love is sincere. Nathaniel will be 12 next month. We're going to have a small party in our garden. Nothing big, just a barbecue with friends, family. Eleanor's daughters are coming from Chicago with their children, older than Nathaniel. It has become a party that the whole neighborhood looks forward to. The funniest thing is, the same people who said Eleanor was too old for me now say we are made for each other. Time has balanced things out. I have become more mature. She has remained that quiet strength. Love, my friends. True love, the one that doesn't look at age. The one that requires courage to face the stares, the judgments. The one that builds on solid ground in a world of instant gratification. All right, I'm going back to work. The guys must be back from their break. We're pouring the concrete for the second floor today. But first, I'm going to stop by Nathaniel's school, just to give him a wave. He still loves my surprises, even if he's starting to think his parents are dorky. That's my life today. Work, family, responsibilities. Very far from the wanderer who arrived here with a ladder on his back. But you want to know something? I wouldn't change this life for anything in the world. Because in this life, I have finally found what I was looking for my whole life. A place to call home. A place where I am loved for who I am. Number. But you want to know something? I wouldn't change this life for anything in the world. Because in this life, I have finally found what I was looking for my whole life. A place to call home. A place where I am loved for who I am. No, it's more than that. It's a place where I've become the man I was always meant to be. This love didn't just give me a home. It gave me a purpose. Our child, our Nathaniel, didn't just make me a father. He taught me and this whole town that the greatest miracles are born from the greatest love. Our story isn't about the scandal of an older woman and a younger man. It's about how love, in its purest, most unexpected form, can silence the loudest judgments, heal the deepest wounds, and build a testament to hope right in the middle of an ordinary world. This is the truth we have lived, that your life is not over when society says it is, that your heart does not have an expiration date, that the most beautiful chapters can be written when everyone else thinks the book is closed. So, never let anyone tell you it's too late. Never stop listening to the whispers of your own heart. Your miracle might just be waiting behind a door you're too afraid to open, or on a path everyone else tells you not to take. If our journey has touched your soul, if you believe that stories of love and courage deserve to be heard, then please help us spread this light, like this video, so that others who need hope can find it. Subscribe to our channel for more stories that defy the odds. And in the comments below, please share with us, what miracle are you hoping for in your own life? Because every voice adds to the chorus of love, and every story shared is a beacon in the dark. Thank you for listening.